Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I'm Twanna. I'm going to give you a few more minutes to hop on tonight. I do appreciate you for hopping on this live. And to those of you that are catching this on Facebook, welcome. To those of you who are actually seeing this on LinkedIn, you too are welcome. And for those of you who catch this on YouTube as well, you're welcome. So I have one question I want to ask you starting off, and that question is your job killing you? No, really. Is your job killing you? That's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about the red flags that the job is too stressful. So, if this is your first time meeting me, I'm Dr. Twanna Carter, and I am a career transition coach, and I help high achieving professional women overcome that anxiety and doubt that can come from shifting, transitioning into a new career. And I do that by empowering them to recognize and communicate their unique value and by instilling a deep sense of belief in their own strengths and abilities so they can confidently and courageously create success on their own terms, right? And pursue a path of purpose that is meaningful to them. So if you can hear me and you are on, go ahead and drop a one in the comments and go ahead and answer that question for me. Is your job killing you? I mean, no, really, is it killing you? Um, I can certainly understand that when that stress starts to pile up and it piles up, and it just seems like you can't do anything, you can't go left, you can't go right, and sometimes we just feel stuck. Sometimes we just go into survival mode, and we just stay there. I can remember my very first job, my first real, truly real job, as a brand new second lieutenant in the United States Army, and that job was so stressful. And I'm not telling anybody to do this. Do not do this at home because this really could hurt you. But what I would do is I would on the weekends I would be so glad to get away. I would jump in my car and I would drive to New Hampshire. I was stationed at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. And I would drive to New Hampshire because New Hampshire had these winding, curving roads, like those country roads that just kind of winding and curved. And I would de stress by, you know, driving my car way too fast for the conditions, way too fast for those winding roads, but seeing just how fast I could take that curve and not have an accident. Now, again, do not try this at home because that was the absolutely wrong way to handle that stress. But again, I can understand how it feels when you feel so stressed that you just start doing really crazy things sometimes, right? Trying to rid yourself of some of that stress. So I am not going to hold off much longer because I do want to get to these red flags that the job is too stressful. That's what I'm talking about today. If you feel like your job is causing way more stress than it's worth, it just might be time to find a new one. And for me, I felt like I couldn't get a new job. The art I had an RTC scholarship. It paid for 4 years of my college, and I was on a contract. I owed them 40 something $1,000 when I entered on active duty. So I felt stuck. I just felt like I was stuck right there. I couldn't go anywhere and I couldn't do anything. And that's when really that anxiety and stress starts to build up, right? And so again, sometimes it's not easy. It's not always easy choice to just leave, especially if you need the money or you need the benefits. Or in my case, I had a contract and I didn't have $40,000 on that tree in my backyard, to pay that $40,000 should I decide I didn't want to be in the army anymore. So there I was, right? But there are some signs that can actually help you to determine whether or not your workplace is too stressful and to consider leaving. And I know, for the most part, I tell people, when you get ready to leave a toxic job or a stressful job, it's not like you got to quit today and you're done tomorrow. You can actually start taking actions to prepare to leave so that you can do that transition, right, into something else and walk away and get away from stressfulness, right? So let's start talking about it. What are the signs that that job is really too stressful? When you're off work, you're still talking about work. When you're off the clock, you're talking about it, you're upset about it, you still think about it. If you just find yourself consistently talking about the job, how you're being treated, or how someone else is being treated, or how stressed out you are, you know, if someone is talking about their job all the time, it's probably because they're under too much stress and pressure. If you just find it difficult to let go. Okay. And so, it's not that someone's just talking about their job, because most of us talk about our job. It is that person that, morning, noon, and night, they're consistently talking about that job. Okay. And really, you have to look for a healthy balance of work and play for it to be really that. And then I hate to say balance, we talk about work life balance. There isn't a balance. You kind of juggle it, but you really got to, juggle it well so that, yes, you stay focused and do what the job requires, but you also take that time away, and so you can decompress and feel good. Anybody out there know someone like this? All they ever talk about is a job, like over and over. That is it, morning, noon, night, all day, all night, weekends, holidays, everything. The only thing they do is talk about that job, right? And you that's kind of one of the red flags, right? So another red flag that you need to look for is, do you feel exhausted most of the time? When you're stressed out, it sometimes it's hard to get a good night of sleep. And the problem is feeling, tired, that it doesn't go away. So it's not only you feel exhausted, whether you sleep a lot, you sleep a little, it feels like that exhaustion, that tiredness, it just doesn't go away even after a good night's rest. It's like a constant state of being for some people, where they're just exhausted, and they kind of sometimes dragging themselves through the day, and they drag themselves home. They go to sleep, drag themselves to bed, they drag themselves up, and still they just feel tired. So if you're tired all the time, when you wake up, when you come home from work, and even when you're on vacation, the chances are high that your job may be too stressful, and you need to do some rethinking around it, right? This sounds like your situation. If it's not you, consider yourself lucky. But if it sounds like you, there's some things that maybe you can do to alleviate that stress and improve your quality of sleep. And some potential solutions for that includes relaxation exercises before bedtime. And you have to really gauge this, because they tell you shouldn't do like that really hard physical, activity before bed, because you'll wake up and won't go to bed. And that's true for most people. I am one of those persons that I can exercise an hour before I go to bed, get my shower and sleep like a baby, but not everybody can. So you want to do maybe some stretches, some, gentle yoga, and some things to do. Like I like to do the wall pose yoga, and then read my book while I'm doing that. And it kind of calms me down and soothes me down. And then also look at getting more exercise during the day, right? And because again, exercising releases those endorphins, it helps you feel good, number one, but it also promotes relaxation, right? And so another sign that, yeah, your job is too stressful. Do you dread going to work? In fact, do you get a headache, stomach ache when it's time to go to work, or maybe a backache, or your shoulders just kind of ache when it's time for you to go to work? That could be a sign that your job is just too stressful, because it means you feel strongly enough about the issues going on at your job that it makes you unhappy before you even walk in the door, right? And so if your job is making you dread going to work, it's probably really not worth staying in that job in the long run, because it's just extra added pressure on you, right? And so if you dread going to work because of the job itself, really consider these three questions. Number one, do I have a good reputation, relationship with my colleagues? And am I able to do my job well, still do my job well? And then number three, is my manager supportive and understanding? If you can answer no to those questions, it's probably worth it to consider leaving the company at that point, right? Because you're not getting fulfilled. Your job probably doesn't feel like, when you first got there, you're like, oh, this is my passion and my purpose. It's probably like, I just hate going in, right? And again, it is, getting ready to make the decision. Again, it's not, like I made a decision to leave tomorrow. You still have time, but you need to start working a plan to get you out the door. And then the next one is, your job affecting your relationships? Biggie here, right? If your job is causing stress, anxiety, or fear, it's really hard to be a good friend, spouse, or parent, right? You may be crabby and more irritable than you normally are and have problems, paying attention to what people are saying, tracking the conversation, or even just feeling like you have the energy to get up and go and do things with people, right? So your relationships will suffer as a result of your work issues. And if so, then it's time to go outside and seek help with your job situation because it probably really says it is time to go. Okay. The next reason that says, the red flags that your job is too stressful, if your job is affecting your health, right? It's common for people to be afraid of workplace stress because it can have those really serious long-term effects on your health, right? All of that stress can cause, as I said before, headaches and stomach problems, ulcers, heart attacks, or just cardiovascular disease, insomnia, weight gain, right? It's hard to lose weight when you're stressed, and especially when that stress is coming from your job. It can also lead to high blood pressure, which is hypertension, as well as depression and a host of anxiety disorders, right? And so, finally, stress can really cause substance abuse or addiction because you're starting to treat the stress, trying to treat it with something else, drugs, alcohol, wine. And we a lot of folks did this during the pandemic. They started out with a glass of wine every couple of nights a week, and then it was like, okay, maybe two glasses of wine. Then it was like, okay, not every other day, but maybe every day. And really, you can find yourself headed down the road to a substance abuse problem or addiction, and it's not even what you really meant because that job stress is constantly on you. Another sign to look for, and we Americans have issues with this one. You can't take vacations. Red flag. Red flag. If you cannot take vacations, is it because whether it's your boss is too busy or doesn't want to let you go or doesn't even care about your well being, whether you need to take that vacation and de stress? You know, that doesn't mean you need to accept that status quo, however. Try asking for a vacation, explaining why you need one in the first place. Like I'm at my limit. I really need to get a break on vacation. And if necessary, see your primary care physician. I am in my other business that I have. I'm a licensed therapist, and so this is something that I do for folks. I come in, I'm the one going, you need a break. You really got to take this break. And so, if you're in therapy, talk to your therapist, see your primary care doctor, talk to your therapist, and then have them write it up so you can justify that you need that break because you need to distress, right? And so, again, if your boss refuses to even entertain or listen, yeah, it's time to look for a new job. It really is. Like, and again, I'll keep saying this. It's not time to just walk out the door. Although I have actually told people because the job was affecting them so badly. Your health is plummeting. It's really exacerbating some things. You might need to find a job and just depend on your spouse, or if you have some money saved up, or even take a bridge job to get away from the stress, right? Because while there are plenty of jobs where people don't take vacations, those jobs aren't going to really make you happy, right? And so the workers are not happy. You won't do that. But if you take your time and start early enough, you can really create a plan to find that next job. Okay. So anybody I hear, is this resonating with you? You have those jobs where you can't take vacation, where it's affecting your health, or it's affecting your relationships. I had a client that was like this. Hubby was like, you need to leave this job, but she was afraid. And it was causing a lot of friction in that relationship. And that can actually happen, whether it's friction between you and your spouse or you and your kids. Anybody out there know that you dread going to work every Sunday night, or whichever day is your first day of the week, but every Sunday night you just unexplainably get sick. Friday you feel bad Monday through Friday. All of a sudden Friday when you leave that job you feel better, but when it comes to Sunday night you feel worse. Yeah. Anybody else out there like that? Or do you feel exhausted all the time, or are you consistently talking about that job? Again, these are the red flags that your job is too stressful. And it's probably time for you to start planning your exit route from that job, right? So the next thing I want to talk about, this is a big one. This was a huge one for me. You don't even want to see your boss. You don't want to hear your boss's voice. You don't want to be in a meeting with them. You don't want to see an email from him or her. You just don't like anything related to your supervisor. Big red flag that it is probably time for you to go, especially if you're feeling like meetings with your boss are a waste of time, or the meetings themselves are creating the stress, right? And you feel like they're inefficient and it's just a huge, just takes up so much space out of your day. Red flag, that job is probably too stressful. The next thing is, if you feel like you're drowning, like your work is so intense and it's so much that do you feel like you're overwhelmed and drowning every day, feeling like you just can't keep up with the workload? Or, if you're often stressed out about deadline after deadline after deadline, deadline has a deadline that has a deadline, if it seems like your boss is always breathing down your neck, even when they are not, that's a huge red flag. That job is too stressful. The key question here is whether or not, is this job too stressful for your personality? Sometimes that happens. I have social anxiety and I'm an introvert, so I understand what jobs, I had to figure out what jobs were appropriate for me, because not all jobs are, right? And that's something a career coach can help you do. Really, dig in and get down to the root, do the deep dives to figure out, okay, these jobs are really great, they match your personality, and these don't. And here's the thing, just because you're really good at doing something doesn't necessarily mean you need to have that job. I was really great at doing inspections and, quoting the regulations and telling people what they needed to do, but that job was so stressful. It's not what I needed to do, even though I was good at it. And people's like, oh, you should do this. I had to learn that job is too stressful and I don't need that particular job. Okay. Are you someone who really thrives on pressure, under pressure, and just doesn't really need as much structure in their life? Or does this sound like unmanageable, like it's an unmanageable level of stress to handle? Really take some time out and reflect on what is it about that job that is really stressing you out? And then be honest with yourself. I know this job makes this amount of money, but these things stress me out, and it's probably time for me to find a job that uses all my other talents but just doesn't have this particular thing in it, right? And if your job is really causing these kinds of problems, it really is time to find a better situation. Once you lose your health, you've lost everything. What's the point? If you lose your health, you can't work that job or any other job. And I've had coworkers who were sent home, with from their doctor saying you can't lift anything heavier than a broomstick because they were so stressed. When your health starts to decline like that, what's the point again of having the job? You can't take care of yourself. You can't take care of your family. You can't take care of the mortgage. You can't send your kids to college, all because you stayed at the job way too long, much more than it was necessary, and dealt with that stress. Remember that your health is a priority. If your job is causing these kinds of problems, it is really time to find a better situation. Your energy can really be put into something more rewarding and worthwhile than working in an environment that makes you that unhappy that it's affecting your health. So don't stay in a job that makes you sick, stresses you out, depresses you, or in the long run kills you. It really isn't worth it. Use your energy to find something more fulfilling, like finding the right place with the right fit. That's where you need to be. Okay. So if your job is stressing you out because of these kinds of problems, again, it's time to find a better situation. You don't have to quit now, but you really do deserve a job that makes you feel good about yourself and provides the opportunity for growth. And besides, life is just way too short to be miserable at work. Okay. So let me ask you this. Who wants a checklist of the 34 red flags that your job is too stressful? Have a checklist. If that is you, drop hashtag stress in the comments and I will send you a copy of my checklist. Again, 34 red flags that your job is too stressful. It is a free checklist. Drop hashtag stress in the comments. If you catch this on the replay, still drop that hashtag stress in the comments and I will get a copy of that checklist to you. That is what I have for you today. I do appreciate you for hanging in there to the end. And again, because your job is stressful, you don't have to stay in there and hang in there until it, ruins your health where you can't do it better. Thanks for watching. This has been Dr. Twanna, and I will talk to you next week, same time. Bye bye.